My name is Henry, and I need to tell you about something that happened to me in the summer of 2019. Something that made me abandon a lifelong dream and swear I'd never set foot in the deep woods again. I was 23 years old, fresh out of college, and I just landed my dream job as a wildlife photographer. I'd been hired by a nature magazine to document the old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest, specifically a remote area of the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest in Washington State. I was supposed to spend 2 weeks alone, camping deep in the backcountry, capturing images of elk, bears, and whatever else I could find. The first 3 days were perfect. I mean, absolutely perfect. The forest was pristine, untouched, the kind of place where you felt like the first human to ever walk there. Massive Douglas firs stretched up like cathedral pillars, and the morning mist made everything look ethereal, almost magical. I was getting incredible shots. My editor was going to love this. But on the fourth night, things changed. I'd set up camp in a small clearing near a creek, about 15 miles from the nearest trail. My tent was a good one, sturdy, warm, and I had my camera equipment carefully stored in waterproof cases. I'd cooked some freeze-dried beef stroganoff over my portable stove and was settling in for the night when I heard it. A smell hit me first. God, that smell. Have you ever driven past a dumpster behind a restaurant in the middle of summer? Rotting meat, sweat, wet dog, but worse. So much worse. It was biological, primal, the kind of smell that makes every instinct in your body scream danger. I unzipped my tent slightly and peered out. My campfire had burned down to embers, casting just enough light to see maybe 10 feet in front of me. The woods beyond that were absolute blackness. I grabbed my flashlight and swept it across the tree line. Nothing, just trees and shadows. But the smell was getting stronger. And then I heard the footsteps. Not like a deer or an elk, not the soft padding of a cougar. These were heavy, deliberate, bipedal. Something walking on 2 legs was circling my camp, just beyond the range of my flashlight. I could hear branches snapping under its weight, hear the heavy footfalls on the forest floor. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the flashlight steady. I wanted to call out to yell, "Who's there?" like an idiot in a horror movie, but something stopped me. Some ancient part of my brain that knew that making noise was the worst thing I could possibly do. The footsteps stopped. Everything went silent. Even the creek seemed to stop gurgling. The forest held its breath, and so did I. Then I heard breathing. Deep, rumbling breaths that sounded like they came from a chest the size of a barrel. It was close, maybe 20 feet away. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it watching me. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. My skin felt like it was crawling. I slowly, so slowly, reached for my camera. If something was out there, I needed proof. My hand found the camera body, and I brought it up, peering through the viewfinder with the night vision setting activated. And that's when I saw it. Through the green glow of the night vision, standing between 2 massive trees, was a figure. It had to be at least 8 feet tall, maybe more. Broad shoulders, arms that hung down past its knees, covered in dark hair or fur. But it was the face that made my blood turn to ice. It wasn't an ape. It wasn't a bear. The features were too human, too intelligent. The eyes caught the infrared light from my camera and reflected back like a cat's, but they were forward-facing, predatory, and it was looking directly at me, directly at my tent. My finger found the shutter button. I took one photo. The mechanical click of the shutter sounded like a gunshot in the silence. The thing's head snapped slightly, like it heard it, and then it did something that still haunts me to this day. It smiled. I swear to God, this thing smiled at me. Not a human smile. Something else. Something that said, "I know you're in there. I know you're afraid, and I'm enjoying this." It started moving again, but this time it wasn't circling. It was approaching. Each footstep brought it closer to my tent. I could hear its breathing getting louder. That smell was overwhelming now, making me gag, making my eyes water. I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed the portable stove, still warm from cooking, and my can of bear spray. If this thing came at my tent, I'd spray it and run. That was the plan. A terrible plan, but the only one I had. The footsteps stopped right outside my tent. I could see the silhouette through the fabric. It was crouching down, its massive form blocking out the starlight. I heard sniffing. It was smelling me, learning my scent. My finger was on the bear spray trigger. My heart was beating so hard I thought it would burst. The tent fabric suddenly pushed inward slightly. It was touching it, pressing against it with what might have been a finger or a claw. Exploring, testing. I was about to scream, about to spray, about to do something, anything, when a sound split the night air. A howl, but not from the thing outside my tent. This came from deeper in the forest, further away. It was answered by another howl, and then another. There were more of them out there. This wasn't alone. The thing outside my tent stood up suddenly. I heard it vocalize, a deep, guttural sound that was part growl, part something else. And then it moved away. The footsteps retreated back into the forest, back toward the howls. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my tent, bear spray in one hand, knife in the other, listening. Just before dawn, when the first birds started singing again, I knew it was gone. The forest had returned to normal. I broke camp in record time. I didn't even pack properly. I just shoved everything into my backpack and started hiking. 15 miles back to my car. I did it in less than 4 hours, practically running, not stopping even when my lungs burned and my legs cramped. When I got home, I immediately checked my camera. That one photo I'd taken, I needed to see it in proper light, needed to confirm what I'd seen wasn't just fear playing tricks on me. The photo was there, crystal clear, and it was worse than I remembered. The creature was even more massive than I'd thought, but it was what I saw in the background that made me delete the entire memory card and quit my job the next day. There were 4 more of them, standing in the trees behind the first one, all watching, all waiting. I'd never been alone that night. I'd been surrounded. I never told my editor the real reason I quit. I just said the wilderness wasn't for me. Sometimes, late at night, I wake up and that smell is in my room, just for a second. And I know that they remember me too. They know my scent now. And if I ever go back into those woods, they'll be waiting. My name is Henry, and I'm never going back. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm 31 years old now. But when I was 16, my family rented a cabin in the Appalachian Mountains for what was supposed to be a peaceful weekend getaway. What happened there destroyed my family and left me with scars that no one else can see. It was October 2009. My parents thought it would be nice to unplug for a weekend. No phones, no internet, just quality family time. They'd found this cabin online, deep in the mountains of West Virginia. The listing said it was rustic and secluded, which should have been a red flag, but my parents thought it sounded charming. The cabin was about 40 minutes off the main road, down a dirt path that barely qualified as a driveway. It was old, like really old, but it had running water and electricity. So my parents were happy. It was just me, my mom, my dad, and my little brother Tyler, who was 12 at the time. The first night was fine. We played board games, roasted marshmallows in the fireplace, did all the wholesome family stuff. Tyler and I shared a room upstairs, 2 twin beds with a window that looked out over the forest. The trees were so thick you couldn't see more than 20 feet into them. Around midnight, Tyler woke me up. He was sitting up in bed, staring at the window. "Elizabeth," he whispered, "there's someone outside." I groaned. Tyler was always imagining things, monsters under the bed, aliens in the closet. I told him to go back to sleep. "No, seriously," he insisted. "Look." I sat up and looked at the window. At first, I didn't see anything, just darkness and the silhouettes of trees. But then I saw movement, something large shifting in the shadows. My eyes were adjusting, and I could make out a shape, a massive shape, standing between 2 trees, maybe 30 feet from the cabin. "It's probably just a bear," I whispered, though my voice was shaking. "Go back to sleep." But it wasn't a bear. I knew it wasn't a bear, because as I watched, it stepped forward into a patch of moonlight, and I saw its face. Even from that distance, even in the dim light, I could see it wasn't any animal I'd ever learned about in school. It was watching our window, watching us. Tyler grabbed my hand and squeezed so hard it hurt. We sat there, frozen, for what felt like hours, but was probably only 10 minutes. The thing didn't move. It just stood there, observing. Finally, it turned and walked away, disappearing into the trees. We didn't sleep the rest of that night. The next morning, I told my parents what we'd seen. Dad laughed it off, said it was probably just shadows and overactive imaginations. Mom suggested we'd both had the same dream, but Tyler and I knew what we'd seen was real. Dad decided to take us on a hike that afternoon. There was a trail behind the cabin that supposedly led to a waterfall. Tyler didn't want to go. He wanted to stay inside, but Dad insisted. We're not going to waste this beautiful day being scared of shadows. The trail was overgrown and clearly not used very often. We hiked for about an hour before Dad admitted he had no idea where the waterfall was. We were about to turn back when Tyler spotted something off the trail. "What's that?" he pointed. There was a structure about 50 yards into the woods. We pushed through the underbrush to get a closer look, and what we found made my stomach drop. It was a shelter, but not made by humans. It was constructed from broken tree branches, all woven together and leaned against a massive oak tree. The branches were huge, the kind you'd need incredible strength to break and move. Inside the shelter, there was a pile of bones. Deer bones, mostly, but other things too. The ground was matted down, like something large had been bedding there. And the smell. Oh God, that smell. Like a wet dog that had rolled in garbage and death. Mom grabbed Tyler and started pulling him back toward the trail. "We're leaving." Now, Dad was still examining the structure, fascinated. "This is incredible. Maybe it's a bear den or..." "That's not a bear den, Laura." Mom's voice was panicked. "Look at it. Look at how those branches are woven. We're leaving now." We practically ran back to the cabin. Mom started packing our stuff immediately, saying we were leaving first thing in the morning. Dad tried to calm her down, but even he looked unsettled. That night, we were all in the living room. Mom and Dad insisted we stay together downstairs. Dad had pulled out an old hunting rifle that the cabin owner had left in a closet, and he kept it across his lap. None of us were sleeping. Around 2 a.m., we heard it. Footsteps. On the porch. Heavy, deliberate footsteps pacing back and forth. The wood planks creaked under the weight. Dad stood up, rifle in hand. "Who's out there?" he called. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then something hit the door. Not a knock. A thud. Like something had slammed its body against it. The door shook in its frame. Tyler started crying. Mom pulled him close. Dad raised the rifle, pointing it at the door. Another thud. Harder this time. The door rattled. Whatever was out there was testing it, seeing how strong it was. "Get away from here." Dad shouted, "I have a gun. I'll shoot." The thud stopped. For a moment, I thought it had worked. Then we heard something worse. Scratching. Long, slow scratches moving across the wooden walls of the cabin, like claws or fingernails dragging across the exterior. It moved from the door, along the front wall, around the corner, heading toward the windows. Dad moved to the window, rifle ready. "Don't look outside." Mom hissed at Tyler and me, but I couldn't help it. I had to see. A shadow moved past the window. Massive. Upright. The scratching continued, moving around the entire cabin. It was circling us, marking territory, or maybe counting us. Then it went quiet. The scratching stopped. The footsteps stopped. We waited, barely breathing. 5 minutes passed. 10. Nothing. Dad slowly approached the window and peeked out. "I don't see anything," he whispered. That's when we heard Tyler scream. We spun around and saw it. A face pressed against the back window. A face covered in dark hair, with eyes that reflected the lamplight. Eyes that looked almost human, but wrong. So wrong. The mouth was partially open, revealing teeth that were too large, too yellow. Dad fired the rifle. The window exploded outward. The thing roared, and I mean roared, a sound so loud and primal that it shook the cabin walls. We heard it crash through the underbrush, moving away fast. We spent the rest of the night huddled together, Dad keeping watch with the rifle. The second the sun started rising, we We grabbed our half-packed bags and ran to the car. We left most of our stuff behind. We just wanted out. The drive down that dirt road was the longest 40 minutes of my life. I kept looking back, expecting to see something chasing us. Tyler was catatonic, just staring straight ahead. Mom was crying silently. Dad's hands were shaking so badly, he could barely hold the steering wheel. We never talked about it. Not really. Dad made us promise not to tell anyone what we'd seen. He was afraid people would think we were crazy. Tyler needed therapy for years afterward. He still can't sleep without a light on, and he's 27 now. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. About 6 months after our trip, I was curious and looked up that cabin online. I wanted to see if anyone else had left reviews, had experienced anything weird. The listing was gone, completely scrubbed from the internet, so I did more digging. I found old property records. That cabin had been abandoned in the 1970s after the family living there disappeared. All 4 of them. They were never found. And in the police reports from that time, which I found in a digital archive of old newspapers, there was one detail that made my blood run cold. The investigating officer noted that there were scratches all around the outside of the cabin. Long, deep scratches in the wood, and massive footprints in the mud. Footprints that didn't match any known animal. We weren't the first family to encounter whatever lived in those woods, and I don't think we'll be the last. That cabin is still out there, and so is the thing that visits it. My name is Elizabeth, and I'll never forget the face in that window. My name is Laura, and I used to work as a forest ranger in Northern California. I say used to because I quit 3 years ago after an encounter that the Park Service officially denies ever happened. They made me sign an NDA, but I don't care anymore. People need to know what's out there. This happened in the fall of 2021. I'd been a ranger for 8 years at that point, stationed at a remote section of the Six Rivers National Forest. I knew those woods like the back of my hand. Every trail, every creek, every dangerous drop-off. I'd seen bears, mountain lions, even tracked a few illegal marijuana grows. Nothing scared me out there. I was comfortable in the wilderness. I was wrong to be comfortable. We'd been getting reports from hikers about unusual activity in the backcountry. Campsites torn apart, food storage lockers ripped open with what had to be incredible force, strange vocalizations at night that people couldn't identify. Some hikers reported feeling watched, feeling threatened enough that they abandoned their trips early. My supervisor, Linda, thought it was probably a problem bear that had learned to get into campsites. She asked me to do a night patrol through the area where most of the reports were concentrated. It was a section of the park about 12 miles from the nearest road, accessible only by foot. I headed out late in the afternoon, planning to reach the problem area by dusk, observe overnight, and hike back the next morning. Standard patrol. I'd done hundreds of them. I reached the area just as the sun was setting. There were 3 campsites within a half-mile radius, all empty. The season was winding down, and weeknight camping in the backcountry was pretty rare. I set up my own camp, just a small bivvy and sleeping bag, in a spot that gave me a good view of all 3 sites. As darkness fell, I ate an MRE and settled into wait. I had my radio, my flashlight, my service pistol, and bear spray. I felt prepared for anything. The forest was quiet, just the usual sounds, wind in the trees, an owl hooting somewhere distant, the creek babbling nearby. Around 9 p.m., the forest went silent, and I mean completely silent. Every ranger knows that when the forest goes quiet, something's wrong. The prey animals have sensed a predator and are hiding. I sat up, instantly alert. My hand went to my pistol. I scanned the darkness with my flashlight, looking for eyeshine, the reflection of animal eyes in the dark. Bears, deer, mountain lions, they all reflect light differently. It's a useful way to identify what's out there. I saw them. Eyes, but they were 6 feet off the ground. No bear's eyes are that high. No mountain lions. These were too high, too forward-facing, too aware. I stood up, making myself big, and shouted the standard warning I used for bears. Hey, get out of here. Go on. The eyes didn't move. Whatever it was didn't even flinch. It just stood there, staring at me. My flashlight beam couldn't reach far enough to fully illuminate it. I could just see those eyes, unblinking, watching. Then it moved. Not away. Closer. I heard the footsteps, bipedal, heavy, coming toward me. This wasn't animal curiosity. This was deliberate, purposeful. I pulled my pistol and chambered around. The sound echoed through the silent forest. The footsteps stopped. The eyes disappeared. It had moved behind a tree, but I could hear it, circling around, trying to flank me. This thing was intelligent. It was hunting me. I grabbed my radio. "Dispatch, this is Ranger Collins. I need backup at..." A vocalization cut me off. It came from behind me, which meant there were at least two of them. The sound was like nothing I'd ever heard. It started as a low growl that rose into a howl, but there were almost words in it. Syllables. Structure. It sounded like language. I spun around, flashlight and pistol sweeping the darkness. I saw it clearly this time. Standing between two trees, not 20 feet away, was a creature at least 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown hair, arms that reached nearly to its knees, a face that looked like a nightmare fusion of ape and human, and it was looking right at me with an expression that I can only describe as calculating, like it was studying me, figuring me out. I fired my pistol in the air, a warning shot. The sound was deafening, echoing off the canyon walls. The creature didn't run. It didn't even flinch. It took a step toward me, then another. It was calling my bluff. I aimed at it directly. "Don't come any closer," I shouted. My voice sounded weak, terrified. It stopped, tilted its head, and then it did something that still gives me nightmares. It vocalized again, but this time it sounded like it was mimicking me. The rhythm and pitch of my shout, but deeper, distorted, like it was mocking me. Or maybe trying to communicate. Behind me, I heard the other one moving closer. I was being boxed in. These things were coordinating, working together. I made a decision. I ran. I grabbed my pack, and I ran toward the trail that led back to civilization, 12 miles away. My flashlight bounced wildly as I sprinted down the path. I could hear them behind me, not chasing, following, pacing me, staying just behind, just out of sight. I ran for hours. Every time I slowed down, I'd hear them, branches breaking, footsteps, that horrible vocalization echoing through the trees. They were hurting me, I realized, keeping me moving in a specific direction. But why? Where are they taking me? Around midnight, I burst into a clearing and stopped dead. In the center of the clearing was a structure, a teepee-like formation made from massive tree branches, all arranged around a central point. Around it were signs, symbols made from rocks and bones, a perfect circle of stones with what looked like a deer skull in the center. This was a territorial marker. I was in their territory, and I'd been brought here deliberately. The forest erupted with sounds. That vocalization came from all around me, in front, behind, left, right. There were at least 5 or 6 of them, surrounding the clearing. I spun in circles, trying to watch every direction at once. Then I saw them, stepping out of the tree line. 5 massive figures, all at least 8 feet tall, all watching me. They formed a loose circle around me. I was trapped. The largest one, the one directly in front of me, stepped forward. It beat its chest twice, a hollow booming sound, and vocalized. The others responded, a chorus of howls and roars that shook me to my core. I dropped to my knees. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Submission. I couldn't fight them. I couldn't run. All I could do was make myself small and hope they'd let me live. The large one approached me. I could smell it, that overwhelming animal musk. It reached out with a massive hand. I closed my eyes, certain I was about to die. I felt its hand on my head, not violent, almost gentle, patting me, like you'd pat a dog. Then it pushed me, not hard, toward the gap in the circle. It was letting me go. They were all letting me go. I stumbled to my feet and walked, then ran, through the gap. The creatures didn't follow. I looked back once and saw them all standing there, still watching. The large one raised its arm, almost like a wave, or a warning. I made it back to my truck just after dawn. I called Linda immediately and told her everything. She told me to come to the station, that we needed to talk. When I got there were two men in suits waiting. Federal agents, they said, though they never showed me credentials. They asked me detailed questions about what I'd seen, and they recorded everything. Then they made me sign the NDA. They told me that what I'd seen was classified, that these creatures were protected, and that if I ever spoke about it publicly, I'd face federal charges. Linda told me to take a week off. When I came back, I was reassigned to a desk job. No more backcountry patrols. No explanation given. I quit a month later. I couldn't work for an organization that knew these things were out there and was actively hiding it from the public. But here's what really keeps me up at night. About a year after my encounter, I was doing research online, trying to find others who'd seen what I'd seen. I found a forum for park rangers, a private one where we could speak freely, and I discovered I wasn't alone. There are reports going back decades. Rangers from all over the country, California, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, even some from the Appalachians, describing identical encounters. Creatures standing upright, intelligent behavior, territorial markers made from bones and stones, even the same letting people go scenario I experienced. The government knows. The Park Service knows. They've known for years, maybe decades, and they're covering it up. Because if the public knew that there were large, intelligent, potentially dangerous creatures living in our national forests, the entire park system would shut down. Tourism would collapse. The economic impact would be catastrophic. So they keep it quiet. They reassign rangers who see too much. They make us sign NDAs. They dismiss eyewitness reports as hoaxes or misidentifications. And all the while, these creatures are out there, living in the deep woods, watching us, sometimes letting us live, sometimes not. I think about those hikers who went missing over the years in the parks I worked, the ones whose bodies were never found, the ones whose campsites were found destroyed with no explanation. Were they not as lucky as I was? Did they not submit? Did they run the wrong direction? I used to protect the forests and the people who visited them. Now I'm just trying to warn you. When you're camping in the backcountry and the forest goes silent and you feel eyes on you in the darkness, trust that feeling. They're real and they're watching. And maybe, just maybe, you're in their territory and they're deciding whether to let you leave. These were 3 true encounters with something that exists beyond our understanding. 3 people whose lives were forever changed by what they found in the deep woods. The question isn't whether Bigfoot exists. The question is, what else is out there that we don't know about? If you've had a similar experience or know someone who has, share your story in the comments below. And remember, the woods have eyes. Stay safe out there.